Previously in X-Men. Storm, leader of the X-Men, has been rendered powerless, losing her mutant abilities and shattering her understanding of herself and her place in the world. Recently, she began a journey of self discovery across the ocean. Aurora was last seen on the sub Saharan African plains, where she was grazed by a game hunter's rifle, more accurately, grazed by the bullet from a game hunter's rifle, and left for dead. I am Jason Lapidus.
I am Chris Sanagan.
And we are Group of Seven Comics. Welcome to episode 125 of our ongoing Tuesday night live stream read through of the X-Men comics that became classic, as we read Uncanny X-Men 198 by Chris Claremont, legendary artist Barry Windsor-Smith, cover date of October 1985. Chris, how are you?
Oh, I'm good, thanks, Jason. Just doing well. Yeah, wow. Every time you announce which episode, not issue we're doing, it's like we're at now 125 episodes. I'm just always a little thrown in a good way.
Yeah. Well, let's keep adding to that one at a time, and we will eventually get to 1 million. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Let's say hey to Ali and Michael and Chuck, Jason and Nigel in the chat. All day, I kept thinking, I just got to call Nigel and say, Nigel, please come and read Storm. Please come and read Storm. For those of you who have not read this issue before, there is a lot of Storm in this. It's like all Storm in this issue. And I have decided, of course, not to do any kind of impression or any kind of performance because there's so much of her speaking and narrating that it would require like a professional rehearsal to actually do this, and for us to sort of maintain the atmosphere of a casual, friends reading a comic book. It can't be rehearsed. It has to be something that you kind of do off the cuff. And this is a very like melodramatic, but highly dramatic issue for her. And I don't want to do any disservice to the weight of the moments or the character to try and do any kind of impression of her from the movies, the cartoon, or whatever. Anyway, Nigel says, "Ha ha ha!" Just say when. Yeah, there you go. Oh, Ali says Jason editing 40-year-old copy is Chef's Kiss. Ali, that's not a 40-year-old copy. I wrote that copy today. I render it in a comic book style so that it looks like it's sort of part of these comics. But it's a new thing that I started doing recently, adding it into the visuals, because I think it's a little more fun to sort of see it there and not just see our beautiful faces, but to take a look. But often when I read it in those moments, I see where the problems are. It was the bullet that hit her, not the gun. So there you go. Anyway, Chuck says, so you're saying you won't do it in order to protect your amateur status? Yes, in order to protect my amateur status, I will not rehearse. It defeats the purpose of having a show that requires little work. Like, that's one of the reasons we do it live, not just because we like interacting with you all and sharing in some kind of experience, but also we don't have to edit this, right? So we work, let's say it's a 2-hour film shoot and there is no follow-up. We just post it and go. So it's beneficial.
It's like we're the NCAA, Chuck. We don't want to lose our amateur status by inadvertently accepting a T-shirt.
It's exactly like that. Yeah. Chuck, you got it exactly. Yeah, that's one of the things. Like if you start making whatever thing you're into, in our case, making comics or having regular day jobs and family lives, as you start to promote your work through social media, you become a person looking to add content to your social media accounts. And it makes work. And so let's say, posting every day, I find mentally, I don't always have it on top of my head to post every day. You do a better job than I do, Chris. It's good. But
I'm chasing the likes.
But the times that we used to do tea time, I would edit them down and then post them again on YouTube. So we would have these like half-hour to 1-hour chats on Instagram. trying to cut them down to 20 minutes or half hour on YouTube. And it would take me a whole day to do it. And mostly because we talk too much. But anyway, that all being said.
I had to look up Chuck's comment. Chris is looking for that nil money. Nil being name, image, likeness. I think that's what you're saying, Chuck. And you're right. You're right. All of this needs to get paid.
Yeah, big time.
Or not. Let's just keep doing this as friends. It's fun too.
So this is a pretty wild cover. This doesn't look like any other X-Men comic to this point. And, he's really, he being Barry Windsor-Smith, is on all art duties in this issue. So for this cover, his way of rendering cloud and smoke is so much more elaborate than even the last time he drew an X-Men issue a year before this. But I'm going to show you two different ways that this cover appears online. Chuck says it's a beautiful cover, and Chuck, you are correct. But here's two different ways. This is the close to the original printed one, which is here in my hand. Those are identical. And then here's how it often appears in its digital form. See the difference there? Like, it's so dramatically heightened in terms of, I guess, the reds, that magenta. So it's oversaturated. Storm is much more blue. The red is much more red. Her skin color is completely different. And that's one of the reasons I really like that we get to share with everybody the DVD-ROM that has scans of the printed comic, not a digitization of the trade paperback that was like digitally colored. It's sort of the original version, whereas without thinking about how things come out when you don't print it, you often get what's on the right as opposed to what's on the left. So what's on the left is accurate to the printed.
Yeah, the one on the right is just so oversaturated compared.
It's garish.
Yeah, it's wow. So such a lack of clarity compared to the one on the left.
Right. So when you
said also that Barry Windsor-Smith is on all art duties, including coloring.
Oh yes. So this cover, is going to be made in a method that's nicknamed blue line method, which means that the inked art is then photographed and changed into just that really, really light cyan color, that sort of animator's non-photocopy blue. So the line art is changed into just blue line, and then he will come at that blue line art and paint it. So you have the inked art on one page, the color on another, and then you, through the comic book making process, put them together. So he would have painted this to get it like that. Yeah,
it's amazing.
Wild. It looks a lot like markers to me too, but I would love to go back and see.
And I love the purple. Like, it's such a
awesome,
what a great cover. Can I ask a question though about the corner box? Corner box. You have 4 characters: Wolverine, Professor X, Forge, and is that meant to be Jean?
Well, let's read the issue and find out. I think this is one of those where the artist in this case has decided to base it off of who's in the comic.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm guessing we're going to see Jean or Madeline.
Right, Madeline.
I've read the issue. I know who it is.
What happens?
Let's find out. So also, just to dive one more step into seeing what Barry Windsor-Smith brings to the table, check that out. So this is a scan of his original art as is presented in for auction when it went up for sale, but also I've got a copy of this in the Marvel Covers artist edition just over my shoulder there, and it is ridiculous to look at. Like, there's just, you get lost in those clouds, but this really shows you how much effort this guy puts into every little thing. And, we're talking to a guy who spends most of his day trying to draw comics. And when I look at this, I'm blown away by everything he does, but I'm also asking the most important question is, does it read? And if this reads as Storm, the weather goddess, like floating in the sky, yeah, no problem. but is everything there necessary? Like, what is the bare minimum you need to make this read as what it is? And obviously, Barry Windsor-Smith is not a guy that goes with that approach. That's Mignola, Alex Toth, and a lot of other guys in that school. He's going for some really beautiful illustrative rendering that it's like you can gush over and take the time to look at and really sink your teeth into. Go.
I also love the how straight the posture and the arm extending is.
Yeah.
It looks natural. It does, but it also just it feels like, yeah, it symmetrically it looks incredible positioned in the middle of the page as it is.
Well, it gives her some serious regal power.
Yeah.
Then there's that idea of contrast. So in this case, I'm not speaking about light and dark, but contrast of shape and contrast of line. So the difference, we're looking at difference. Whereas the clouds and the wind are flowing and organic and curved, she is erect and straight. And having her stiffness up against those curves helps separate the two and tells a story. So in every area of this, you want contrast, whether it's lights and darks, whether it's, squares and circles, curves and straights, whatever it's going to be, you want those kinds of differences. And Barry Windsor-Smith does that amazingly. So just one last thing, a little history piece to go with this is we're talking about a shift for the previous 10 years in comics where the Silver Age, Golden and Silver Age working man, and I say man because it was, 99% men. The version of the person who worked for Marvel and or DC was a person who was holding down a job, doing regular work, were putting out essentially a page a day. If they could do 2 a day and carry 2 books, that was phenomenal. You could obviously earn a lot more. Doing covers. Jack Kirby would even famously, a decade before this, be doing 3 comics a month, 4 comics a month. He was a workhorse like no other. But then you get all those guys working in the industry for decades, and there wasn't room for new guys to kind of come in. So there's a bit of a gap. And sorry if you hear my dog, I think my family's coming home. So you get a generation of younger guys coming into the New York area who do not have a mortgage and do not have a couple kids on Long Island. And they're able to, instead of trying to do a page a day, they're doing a page a week and they can cover their bills. And because they're doing a page a week or whatever that number is, they can put way more on a page. And it starts to raise the bar for what readers are not necessarily expecting, but what they've been exposed to. So now they're seeing Michael Golden and they're being like, oh my God, you can do that? And you can do Barry Windsor-Smith. Like, these things are possibilities. Whereas before, like, John Buscema is amazing. No disrespect at all. I love his artwork. But he's not spending this amount of time on a cover that Barry Windsor-Smith is. So they became these these kind of rare superstars. Bernie Wrightson, and then eventually like Art Adams, right, who works on, in our X-Men pantheon, he works on very few comics, but each of them is so memorable to those of us who read them because there was so much more to look at. And then carrying this even further, then you get the reaction to this, which are the guys like Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld, whose ethos was, okay, let's try and do that much detail, but at a page a day. So we're going to put marks on so it looks it makes you think it's like this, but we're not actually going to put the work in by hiring a model, getting her to pose, setting up the lighting, and rendering the heck out of it. We're going to just make it look like we kind of did, but we're going to do it fast. And it's fascinating how economics plays such a role into that. Like, if you share a loft with 3 other guys and you got no bills, you can kind of get away with doing a page a week. Whereas, the old timers are really worked on that mortgage and trying to get that steady paycheck. So I find all of that, to me, is fascinating. But There you go. 10 minutes later, I'm done.
You sure?
No. Chuck says, did this image become as iconic as Phoenix from issue 101? I don't know. I mean, probably not. I don't think many people homage this. That might be one of the ways we can figure out what's iconic and what isn't by how often it's reproduced and copied. And almost nobody copies this one. I think it's sort of stands alone. I don't know. But I've seen lots of redos of 101. Like even Alex Ross, like famously did a redo of 101, but no one does this. Ali says, I wonder at what point the comics were less pulp and exposable. Do you mean disposable? Did the chicken come first or the egg? Did the art improve first or the elevation out of disposable rags? I think it's happening. That's a good question. You know, these guys in New York are also getting exposed to manga. You know, there are Japanese bookstores in New York City that were giving them access to art that they had never, that weren't part of like the public consciousness. And all those guys at Neil Adams Continuity Studio were like raiding those shops and hoarding all the manga in New York that they could. So I think it's a combination of things happening at the same time. It takes a little while before Marvel and DC decide to start printing things prestige, right? Like making things on better paper, like Dark Knight Returns in '86. And then after that, it's much more common. I'm trying to think what other prestige format books come out before this. I mean, when I say this, I mean Dark Knight Returns, which is a year after this, not even a year after.
Hey, is this, in terms of publication date, this is a year after Life, Death Part 1, right? Ish?
Yeah, I think, what was that? Issue 81, 86?
Sure.
Yeah, right around there. So about a year.
About a year? Okay.
Like he's working on this. This is what he's doing.
Right. And is there, after this, is there another Claremont, Barry Windsor-Smith X-Men that comes? Life, Death Part 3?
Okay. Life, Death Part 3 does not happen within X-Men. Barry Windsor-Smith has a pitch for it, and it is rejected, and he does it on his own.
Oh.
And it's not Storm. It's an analog.
Oh.
And it's called
Death Life.
Ad Astra. I'm looking it up right now. Barry Windsor-Smith.
Barry.
Ad Astra in Africa. And I'm not going to be able to share my screen with you. But there's a character. Yeah, Ad Astra in Africa. You can get it on Amazon. And when you see it, if you know that it's supposed to be Storm, it's a woman with a mohawk. Yeah, check it out, everyone. After we read this issue.
Wow.
And it might be a one-to-one that you can like make a connection to it that way. Maybe you'll find that it doesn't quite compute. But yeah, he wasn't able to convince Claremont and the group that was the direction to go. But I think it's issue 205. Spoiling, we're going to get a Barry Windsor-Smith doing Wolverine. And whereas this issue is going to be a lot of drama, that one's going to be a lot of like action, and it's spoilers. Okay, it's Wolverine versus Lady Deathstrike and the Reavers when he's already like basically mortally wounded, and he's surviving in a blizzard in Manhattan. And he's chewed to a pulp and having to survive without his wits. He's like already hit animal.
Do we get to see Bonebreaker?
Bonebreaker, I don't believe is in that issue. I think just Reese Macon and what's his name? Cole. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We're gonna get to see that issue, and then there's more.
Okay.
We'll get there. So
promise there's more.
Yes, there's more of him. Toy Ransu, how you doing, man? Hope you're doing well, and glad you're here too. And then just one more thing to show you is the X-Men Classic version of this by one of my favorite people in comics, Brian Stelfreeze. And then you see like the atrocious digital color, where this is not him doing colors, of course,
right.
but he's going for something. And this is some early Brian Stelfreeze. If you want to see his work like elevate and hit unbelievable heights, he does art duties on, I think it's Shadow of the Bat covers, Shadow of the Bat for a long time. And if you ever get the chance to meet him, he is awesome. He's a really great teacher. He's a great teacher in comics. And he was super nice to me when I met him at Fan Expo in 2019. I still have his notes on my cork board right behind my drawing board of things to do to make my art better. And this is not a great example of his art, but it's really early on. Like, why would the editorial like give this assignment to anybody when it's like you're automatically compared to the Barry Windsor-Smith cover? Not a fair gig. Know what I'm saying?
I'm sure.
Well, there you go. But look at the color on this one. This isn't even as nice as, it's a little too saturated. Like mine's a little more subtle.
You know what's interesting, and I don't know if this is intentional, if there's meaning behind this, but Life Death 1, it's not the Uncanny X-Men, it's just X-Men. And for Life Death 2, it's Uncanny X-Men. And if you actually go through those numbers, it's the only one that stands out as it's not Uncanny, it's X-Men.
Yeah, I don't know why, dude.
I
also think this might be the first time we see creators' names on the cover.
Oh, good point.
Which I think is notable, personally.
Yeah.
It changes comics. Like, it, again, sets a bar for what one can ask for when accepting a contract to do, to take on an assignment. It's like, yeah, but I want my name on the cover. It's bold, right? This is the earliest example I know of at Marvel where the name is on the cover. But, and I don't just mean like Marvel monthly books, not a graphic novel or a extra imprint or anything like that, but a regular title. This is a big deal. So, should we get into this, man?
I think we should.
Michael says, give credit where credit is due. Yeah, I like that idea. All right. Life Death 2. It's just wild to look at. Like, Storm is, what, 9 feet tall? The way he's drawn her.
And this echoes somewhat, kind of, the first splash in Life Death 1, where it's Storm splayed out, not doing so great on the bed, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the drapery. So he's coloring the inside of this too, and he is a bit of a nightmare for the coloring process. So the way this is done is that he would get like photocopies almost of his own inked artwork, and then either paint it with watercolor, attack it with markers, or Doc Martin dyes or something like that. And then those photocopies are reference, like those colored photocopies are now reference for this house of women in Connecticut that cut out the shapes for the color plates. And so all these little things that every little dash of color that's a unique splotch, they have to then basically cut out a shape to match it. So the more detailed his color rendering gets, the more that this house of ladies working this factory system would hate working on this issue. And the more detailed his color, also the more, the higher the possibility or the probability that when through the printing process, as color plates shift, you're going to get blurry or, off-center colors. The last thing I'll say about the color is he really, really is creative when he chooses what colors to put in Storm's skin. There are times where he's using greens and all sorts of other things. He's not going with like one brown, but the 64 color palette is really limited when it comes to skin colors. And it's problematic, but he's really inventive with what he's including. And it's at times really fascinating. All right, sorry, dude. You ready? You are.
Oh, I am. Yeah.
Stanley presents Life Death from the Heart of Darkness. The desert, East Africa. Once upon a time, there was a woman who could fly. Now I walk. Just like plain folks. Produced by Chris Claremont and Barry Windsor-Smith. We haven't seen that credit before. Produced by. And of course, Tom Orzechowski, Ann Nesenti, Jim Shooter are the other three. So by that, it tells you he's doing pencils, inks, and color.
Wow.
Yeah, big paycheck. And at this point, also, the royalty system is in place. So the more issues this sells, the more money these two guys make. Once I would have ridden the wind. Now it drives me. The elements I shaped to my will have me at their mercy. I have no idea where I am. For a long time I have wandered aimlessly, without direction or purpose. I am lost. I am alone. My head throbs, my belly aches with hunger. And always the wind, my friend, my servant, taunts me with its fury. It howls, it laughs, it mocks my very being. Without me, Aurora, it cries, you are nothing. Not so! Be silent, Tormentor! Be gone! And it is. So my copy of this is a little blurry at times. I don't know if you... I'm going to look at the one that's on the screen here for a second. Glasses are going back on. Yours is pretty good, but there's like a little gap. Sometimes that you can see in these square text box. Like you'll see a little hints of yellow where it should just be orange. Or you'll see a little smudge of orange underneath the ink line. Or like the ink lines look a little blurry sometimes because colors are bleeding out. Just these color plates shift. And the more pieces that are on there, the more susceptible it is to that. For everyone in the chat, I'm going to have trouble following the chat and commenting on your comments and reading because there's just a lot here. Matters to You says that light source in the image is problematic. You like hard to figure out, where it's coming from and all that. Is what you mean? Yeah, it is. It's a challenging one. I don't think every artist in comics obeys light sources. Sometimes they just look for. I know, for instance, Mignola definitely does not. He kind of plays games with it to just make sure that it reads okay. Whereas other artists like Bernie Wrightson and usually Barry Windsor-Smith do think much more about light source. The sun. I made the sandstorm go away. Goddess be praised, my powers have returned. Do you see the green in her skin? Wild. I don't know where she got this outfit from,
right
from her position last time we saw her. Oh, for some rain to wash the filth from my body. A simple matter to summon a shower. But first I must soar. As high and as far as... Whoa! Ow! She has a good tumble.
Yeah.
Again, those winds are back, I think.
Delusions, Aurora. That's a bad sign.
I hurt, Forge.
You've been shot. Pretty badly, too. The bullet cracked your skull and probably gave you a concussion. It's a miracle you even survived. You can't stay here in the open, babe. The sandstorm's a killer. You gotta find cover.
I do not know where to go. I am lost.
Who isn't?
I'm glad you came to save me. I have missed you so, my love. What am I saying? What am I doing?
Aurora, don't. Let me help.
You betrayed me. You lied to me.
I love.
Nothing and no one. You are as hollow inside as you tried to make me by stealing away my mutant powers. Your pretty words are masks, Forge, to make it easier for you to hurt me, as everyone I have ever loved has hurt me. With my first steps, I trip. goddess! A pit viper! Was I bitten? Must have been. One of the deadliest snakes in creation. Venom acts within seconds. No anecdote. Sorry, no antidote.
Oh, that'd be so much better if that was in there.
I'm done then. Finished. A cave. Fine. At least there I can die in relative peace and quiet. But no one will ever know where I lie, how this came to be. Perhaps that is for the best.
Aurora, we love you. Have we hurt you?
Kitty Pryde! My fellow X-Men, I must be mad. I do not care. Yes, Kitty, yes! You took me from my home. Because of you, I lost my soul, my oneness with the world. I lost my powers of a goddess. I have become nothing. I loved you, Jean, as sister and best friend. Yet in your hour of need, I could not save you.
Aurora, I lived. I died by my choice. Knowing all that would happen, I'd still have taken on the mantle of Phoenix. I love Scott. I love you all. Too much to lose you. Then or now.
This is not real. It is a fever dream, an hallucination. The insanity that precedes death. Maybe. But could imagination provide the smell of smoke? The heat of Wolverine's match flame? The X-Men are in America, half a world away. How can they be here? You called, darling. We came. Remember these? Adamantium claws. They'll cut through anything. Say the word, Aurora, then I'll extend them. Peace forever, darling. That's what you want, right? No more pain. No more fear. I'm not afraid. I'm merely tired. I just wish to sleep. Professor Xavier, is that too much to ask?
Aurora, my dear child, you have always been afraid. Why do you think I took you from your nest and forced you to fly? You were safe there, as a baby in her mother's womb. Had you remained, you would also have remained an infant and probably perished with this land.
Liar! Liar! Oh no. Professor, Kitty, Wolverine, my friends, Jean, come back. Do not leave me. I beg you, I need you. Come back. After a while, eyes open. Senses reluctantly return. Not dead. I was not bitten. I must have dragged myself back to the mouth of the cave. Do I call my survival a miracle or something else? I would laugh, but I have not the strength. Then I realize I am no longer alone. But this time, I do not panic. The snake is as much a part of life and the natural order of things as I, deserving the same fundamental respect, neither more nor less to be feared. Was that some test? Did the bright lady sit in judgment of her errant daughter? I presume my continued existence means I passed, unless this too is a dream, eh? Smoke? In the cave, I thought it part of my delirium. But evidently it's quite real. What is that? Someone crying.
Is that actually a word?
Yeah. There's a help me a couple times in there.
Help me.
Poor little thing. She's hardly more than a child. By the looks of her, it will not be long before she brings her own into the world. Can you hear me? Do you understand?
Yes.
I am Aurora. What is your name? Are you hurt?
The driver could not see the road, the wind and sand. We rolled over and over. There were flames.
Her injuries are comparatively minor. Cuts and bruises. No broken bones, thank goodness. Of the pair of us, I am in far worse shape. Starved, dehydrated, concussed, weak from loss of blood. And she counts on me to rescue her. There's a full-on skeleton in there, by the way. Can you see it?
Yeah. So
Like,
is that like it's been burned by the?
I guess.
I mean, feels kind of like time wise. I don't know how to be a full skeleton with this woman still alive, but
It also might not be literal. Like
right.
you have to really be flexible with what you think is there and what's not there.
Yeah. This is just, I mean, even just following the art is, it's both a treat, but also just what a storytelling, what a addition to this issue.
Yeah, his panel choices, like where he places them, the narrow ones, the ones without gutters. He is a very different comic book maker than everyone else Claremont has worked with on X-Men so far, a really different pacing, and it creates a different voice. It's pretty amazing.
I am Shawnee. Did anyone else?
No.
I want to go home, Aurora. Please take me home.
I will try. Do you know the way?
Follow the road. Aurora, I am cold.
It's partly shock, partly nightfall. The double-edged sword of the desert. Days that broil you, nights that freeze you to the marrow. My cloak is scant protection, but it is all we have. I found nothing of use in the wreckage. We must try to travel as far as we can before it gets too cold, or sort of too dark and too cold. Talk to me, Shani. It will help both of us stay awake.
The city was big and bright and exciting. It was nothing like the village where I was born. I hated the village. I couldn't wait to leave.
Yet now you return. Were you not happy in the city?
Yes, no, sometimes. It wasn't so much fun. There was little work and less money, and the man I loved didn't love me back. Though he was kind, Aurora, he did care for me. I'm glad I bear his child. I would have stayed if not for my baby. I should have made this trip weeks ago, but I kept putting it off. I was frightened of my parents, the elders. How will they react? They're my family. That's my home. The baby is as much a part of them as I. The tribe will give him his heart and soul. From there, he'll be able to go anywhere, do anything, while never losing that special bond with who and what he is. Nothing is more important than that sense of peace, place of belonging.
You are luckier than I, Shani. I never really had that. Until I met the X-Men. They became my family. And you had the courage I lacked. To strike out on your own. To take a risk without being prodded. Throughout my life, I have felt driven by forces and entities outside myself. Xavier spoke truly. I was afraid. Deep down inside, I always believed it would be safer staying the way I was, rather than try something new. Growth meant change, and change carried with it the risk of being hurt. What a sham I was. Storm, the paragon of virtue and courage, the serene goddess who soared above the common herd, untouched and untouchable. who so nobly denied herself any decent, heartfelt emotions because they might affect her control over the weather, and she feared bring harm and suffering to others. So convenient to sacrifice, I made myself immune from what I considered were petty feelings and yearnings and desires, when in truth I was really fleeing as hard and fast as I could from my own humanity. That's a beautiful shot with him by the fire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Even like the panel 1 of the next page on the right, like sleeping.
Yeah, wow.
Jeez.
But breaking that panel border at the top looks awesome. Morning already? The air is still so quiet and clear. The sandstorm has finally blown itself out. By the blessed goddess! What in her name is that? Yeah, he just uses, like, I'm still in that picture.
Oh, sure.
His use of, like, the really light yellows and pinks and blues to create, like, the light shimmering off that surface.
Yeah.
He's unreal.
There's so
really
much.
Is.
There's so much that is put into the backgrounds of these panels, like whether it's the stars, the multicolored stars on the previous page, or the light off the sand, or even the sun and its rays coming up over these machines. There's just so much. We're so. I think in its current run, like maybe the JR, Romita Jr. stuff, there's panels often where it's just a character's head. There's not even anything behind. And that works in certain spaces too. But this is like every part of that panel is put to use.
It's unbelievable.
And it's right. And so, I mean, no wonder it's a year between books, but it's incredible.
Yeah, but look at panel 3 on this page, and you see, okay, that's an example where you save time.
Right.
And it really actually helps with the storytelling not to put anything there. Because you move over it so quickly as a reader, you actually, like, it's like in cinematography, framing a shot where the behind the main character, it's like out of focus and it's dark, or just a flat kind of tone. It works just fine. It makes you wonder, like, what did that monthly deadline and the method of production, what did that do to the art form? How much did that schedule hold back the visual aspect of comic book making in North America, predominantly the States and Canada default, because we really weren't able to produce, comics the same way that our American cousins to the South were. As in terms of mainstream sales, all of our comics were kind of indie after the boom during World War II. But like, I wonder what this does to storytelling from writers' points of view that have to churn out new script every month, regardless of quality and inspiration. And then with these artists, like, look at the difference between this and, I love John Romita, but I love him in the context of monthly comics. Yeah, this guy doesn't work in monthly comics at all. He's playing a different game. Yeah. Wow. Okay. That is awesome. Some great machine abandoned to rot. This is not merely sand. There was arable soil here, farmland, and not so long ago. Yet now it is as barren and desolate as the moon. By the looks of things, scores of hectares were under plow. This must have been a phenomenally prosperous region. But the desert has reclaimed all save a narrow ring of fields surrounding the village itself.
Aurora, there it is. I'm home.
Poor Shani. She is as stunned by this sight as I. It is not as she remembers. Such a drastic change in so short a time. What could have happened?
I'm frightened, Aurora. This was a mistake. I should never have come.
This village is incredibly drawn too. Wow. Chuck was saying earlier, what is his quote? He says, man, I would give my left leg to be able to see the inked artwork pages. Chuck, I agree with you. I would also love to see the colored art, like the separate color plates or the sheets that he had done with color art on them, to see what he was aiming for sometimes, like separate those two things. Yeah, the inked art is any of his originals are incredible. And if you pick up the whatever they're called, we'll talk about it in a bit. I'll show you something at the end if you've got some time still. Too late for second thoughts, little one. We can neither of us travel any further. Be strong, Shani. Come what may, I shall stand beside you.
Aurora, my parents, revered father, beloved mother, I beg thy pardon for any dishonor I have brought upon our family and name. I crave forgiveness for myself, a welcome for my friend, and thy blessings for this life to be. Say something, please. Aurora, why won't they answer? Oh!
What is it, Shani? Who is this?
The elder, Mishnari. He is the law speaker, Aurora, leader of our people since before my mother was born. You have been missed, Shani. To both you and your companion I offer water, salt, bread, and fire. Welcome.
I try to smile, to share my young friend's relief and joy. But I find I lack the strength.
Just gives out. I love it.
Yeah, she's done.
You know those times in your life where, or it could just be even things like your your household and you're the only your household's sick, got the flu, and you're the only one who's not sick, and then as soon as they all get better, like the adrenaline stops, your body weakens, and then you get sick, right?
Right.
It's like that kind of, your body's running on different things, and then suddenly when the coast is clear, I suppose maybe then the body just says, okay, enough.
This is a super common thing that teachers face the first 2 weeks of July. They hang on and hang on and hang on.
Right.
They spent half of July sick.
Right.
It's very frustrating, but it happens in my house regularly. So.
It's just the come down, eh?
Yeah. That's tough. From a colonial point of view,
mm-hmm.
I wonder how different people respond to this artwork, given the depictions of the people in it.
Sure.
To my comic book Canadian comic book eyes from the 80s, I'm interested in all this, and I'm not bumping up against any of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that I'm just one person, and I'm wondering, other perspectives, if this is like, if these depictions feel inauthentic or they feel, I'm wondering what else is out there.
Right.
My point of
right.
view. I dream of mountains. Aboard ship bound for Mombasa. I saw them in a vision. I knew there I would find my destiny. Yet for all my searching across East Africa and through my soul, I have not found them. Nari. It is night. How long have I slept?
Nowhere near enough to fully heal your injuries.
Perhaps so. But the rest has done a world of good. I feel much better.
We cared for you, Wind Rider, as best we could.
You know me?
Yes.
What has happened? Why did you wake me?
It is Shani. Her Baby will not come. She has been calling for you. She is in a very bad way.
Your people dance to aid her?
To propitiate. Is that
propitiate? I don't know that word.
Propitiate? Oh, the spirits, yes.
A hospital would be of more use.
We have no vehicle, Aurora. And even if transportation was sent us, Shawnee wouldn't survive the trip.
What can I do? Missionary, I'm no midwife.
You pledged to stand by the girl.
And I shall, but... Shani, I do not know how to...
Help me, Aurora. Help me and my baby both, please.
I have some training, Shani, but I'm no physician.
I hear my son crying within me. He's scared, Aurora. He doesn't want to die. He wants to be born.
He shall. And we get some silent panels here, but to me they're full of noise too. You know, Aurora over top of her friend holding hands, and we get the dancers. Like, I love that sort of back and forth edit. It's the, you know, just to be have fun with it. It's the dance of life and death, right?
Mm-hmm. Or life death.
Right. And to think, like, how do you script this page? And by that I don't mean put dialogue to it, but how do you write what's here? How do you plan to communicate these things to a reader? It's all about the subtleties and what's in the non-existent gutters.
I definitely hear sound.
Yeah.
When I see this page.
For sure. It's awesome. And again, most of the skins are predominantly greens.
Right.
And it works in that like earthy environment. It's sort of cool. You know, it's not like a super hot room. It's anyway, just fascinating that he can make it work with unconventional colors. But
Chuck wins with his comment, by the way. You should check it out.
Let me look. I had to throw my glasses back on here. Let's see. Osmosis of the ground in the village, which is so layered. Who knew Claremont could shut up for an entire page of panels? Oh, Chuck. Cheeky Chuck. Yeah, there you go.
There you
go. And then almost having all those, working with those greens and browns, really allows this purple to sing.
Sure.
Because, like, now you know something is, like, way off, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. With the color of the baby.
Yeah. Shani, you have a son.
Why doesn't he cry? Why can't I hear him cry?
He's not breathing.
No! It isn't fair. My beautiful boy can't be dead. I fought so hard. I endured so much. He can't be dead.
Hush, woman. I'm trying my best to save him. Breathe, boy. Breathe! Breathe! And I love that. Like, I know where this is going, you know, but those two panels on this page where you see the man, Minari, like the way he's watching.
Yeah.
You know, like kind of the head tilted down a little, looking up through his brow, stepping back into the shadow. He's observing in a very meaningful way. That's very subtle.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome Transformers ad, by the way.
Also,
I love those.
Breathe, yeah. Transformers.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. But these are the thing. This is the thing about a comic book, though.
Yeah.
Because you know, you talked about a little bit earlier about the art form meeting the commercial side and deadlines and things, and you know, is anything removed from the graphic medium because of things like that? And we have this incredibly emotional page, and I absolutely did what you did. My mind was like, breathe, Transformers. Oh, the meat's guy. Like,
Yeah.
just anyway, hey, that's part of it, I guess.
I love the way Optimus's legs like go backwards. Like
Right.
the angle of
Oh
them is
yeah,
like
because the
back
right.
and then kind of forward.
That's a
Just
classic Optimus, right? Those
I love
those
that.
thighs always do that. Yeah.
And I have I had since I was a kid, but the G1 figure, and it never came anywhere near having this stance.
Yeah.
It was like the most unfun hero to play with,
Yeah.
other than the act of just transforming him and rolling the truck around.
Sure.
But as a you know a man, the robot version of him is not fun to play with. Never was.
No.
But anyway, I digress. None of these ones. Grimlock was okay. His legs were together.
That's true.
Megatron was atrocious.
He was.
Soundwave was pretty cool in robot
Yeah, I mean,
form. He was okay.
Tape deck, right?
He was boxy, like, so he still had a powerful stance.
Yeah. You're talking about robot mode now.
Yeah, robot mode.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
All right. Transformers. Listen.
Do you hear?
The child cries.
He
lives.
Was I in time? Did I do the right thing? Will he grow up healthy and whole? Oh, goddess, I pray so. Be merciful, bright lady. Smile on this woman and her son, as I do. I cannot help myself. Joy bubbles within me like champagne, making me giddy with delight.
To your parents' blessing, Shani, I add my own. So natural a moment, Wind Rider, yet so wondrous. Life is the miracle that never ceases to amaze me. Now, if you'll excuse me, there's a last duty I must perform.
The song has changed. Before there was hope. The people sang to give Shani strength and courage. Now, as they strip Mitnyari of his robes and badges of office, the music, their voices, mix triumph and celebration with sadness. The villagers follow to the edge of the fields. And it is then I realize that he will not be coming back. Mijnari! Elder, wait! What is the meaning of this? Where are you going?
I think you know.
Why?
Because I must. Look about you, Aurora. When I was a boy, we lived in harmony with our world. It was a hard life, but we were satisfied. Then, Outlanders came with their machines and their technology, promising to make the desert bloom, and they proved as good as their word. Our land turned green and verdant. The old ways we gladly cast aside, believing we would never need them again. For a while, we held paradise in our hands. But each year, more fertilizer was required to raise the same amount of food. Our flocks overgrazed the land, and the simoon winds blew away the topsoil. There was war. It became harder and harder to acquire fuel for the machines, and when they broke down, we could not afford parts to fix them. Without them, we could not properly work the fields. Without fertilizer, the land became barren. Without pumps for the irrigation system, there was no water to combat the drought. And so we watched helplessly as the desert reclaimed its own. How proud we had been, how quickly we were humbled. There were too many of us for the land that remained to support. Many fled, many more died. A new balance was struck. My people number as many as our crops will sustain. There can be no more.
So for each child that is born,
a place must be made. The very old make way for the very young.
Harsh, Mitnyari. Too harsh.
The balance must be maintained. As the land heals, so will we. Only, this time, we will learn from our mistakes. We will treat it with respect and care. It may be that man is master of the world, but it is a foolish master who whips and beats and works his servant unto death, especially when their lives are bound together. Our way was not altogether good, any more than the Outlanders was bad. We were just too young and foolish, as they were arrogant, to use it properly.
I'm sorry, Mishnari. If not for me, saving Shani and her child, you would not have to die.
Do you understand nothing? Better by far to say that, because of you, a life has been born. My day is done, Aurora. Shawnee's baby represents hope, a chance for the future, a new beginning. That is what makes this a good way to die. That, Wind Rider, is why we celebrate.
Not I. I shall mourn the passing of a friend I hardly knew. And yet, though he is gone, I still hear his voice. Somewhere on these plains, it is said that countless ages ago, the human race began. Now, two great cultures crash headlong into each other. The very old against the very new. The one must give way to the other, for that is nature's way. But at the same time, its wisdom and experience must teach, lest youth and immaturity bring about unwitting catastrophe. Technology is not inherently evil, merely the careless, stupid use of it.
Oh, I think, is this his voice talking? It says, and yet though he is gone, I still hear his voice.
Oh, shoot.
Don't worry about it. I'll just take these last ones because then she responds to it.
Good.
Neither tradition is wholly good if it blinds us to ways of making our lives better and happier. A bridge is needed between these two halves of the world. A synthesis, a blend, a person who is both one and the other, whose mind comprehends and whose hands command the machines, yet whose eyes and soul look upon them with the wisdom of the ages.
Me, Mishnari? You mean me? Is this the mountain I was meant to climb, the purpose, the destiny I have so long sought? A bridge, not simply between old ways and new, but races as well, between humanity and its mutant children. Oh, Mishnari, oh my goddess, I am not worthy. Refuse then, crawl back into your cave, flee from duty and responsibility. It is easily done. A path you have already walked. But if I truly craved that oblivion, I would have let Wolverine kill me in that cave, or will myself to death as Mishnari did on this hilltop. I have found my home, and it is the whole of the world, and with it, the reason for my being. I have no powers, my body cannot fly, but I no longer mind, for in my heart and soul, where it truly matters, I soar higher than the stars. The end.
Wow. That last page to end on a splash like that, eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah. Do you mind going back a few pages
Of course. Sure.
to just before the fireworks start, I guess, or whatever we want to consider those?
This is kind of where they start.
Yeah, look at the sky in the top right panel.
Yeah.
Okay, then go back one more page if you don't mind.
Back or forward?
Back one more. check out that bottom right panel.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's using multiple blues in there. Like he's shifting from one to another, like the way the night sky does, and it's so subtle. It's like the most delicate transition for this technology, like this moment in time, going from a blue to like a blue purple. Uh, incredible, incredible artwork. And his anatomy and hands,
Muscles.
yeah. I mean, every person, like, they don't have an extra ounce on them anywhere. So he's really playing with sinew and tendons and
Mm-hmm.
bones, like flesh stripped over bones or stretched over them. Awesome. Like that, those hands are incredible.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm blown away by the drawing. So what do you think of the story? Like, what's your take after you and I kind of reading this for the first time?
Yeah.
I've looked through this, but I've never read word for word like I did just now. What did
So,
you think?
I mean, I thought it was I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of a beautiful story and beautiful X-Men issue. I mean, artwork, yes, but also just storytelling when it comes to a character finding what they are missing from inside, having been on somewhat of a journey of discovery and finding not necessarily the thing that we may thought that they would come to, being the return of her powers,
Right.
but finding the peace or the purpose, which is really the more interesting piece of the character.
Right.
So I thought it was great for that perspective. I also, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but there is a connection here to the X-Men original '90s animated series, because there is she has I think she calls him her nephew or something, in a village, who she breathed life into as a midwife, or at least assisting at a birth. And I think Mizhnari is a name that's either a different character, or is Mizhnari the boy who becomes the boy?
I believe so.
Right. And he has like super speed kind of thing.
Right.
He's also a mutant.
Right.
But that's where that came from, right? Or the name connected. And then of course, just the breathing life into the baby, to assist to bring it back. So yeah, I thought that was interesting, because we haven't seen a lot of, we've seen some connection to our stories, some of these stories, to the X-Men '90s series. We seem to see more to the more recent one because of what they're pulling from everywhere.
Right. And the literal names.
And the literal, right, exactly.
And then the depower and repower of her. Spoilers,
right.
If you haven't watched X-Men '97. What are you doing with your life? Come on.
Just get on that. So that was really cool, I think, to see that, and to kind of make those connections. What about you? What did you think of the story?
I'm kind of really loving the contrast between the fact she got her powers back on the show,
right,
by Left Death 2, and does not get her powers back in the comic. Like, Claremont has, I don't know if he's deciding it month to month not to give them back to her, but he's stretching the taffy, he's pulling the taffy, and it leaves room for meaningful emotional growth like this. Like, she doesn't live without her powers on the cartoon for very long. Nothing happens for very long on that show. I mean, it was really rolling through plot lines. And I'm wondering how it would have been heightened for her to return to the team with no powers, but just still be a presence. Sure, she would not necessarily have been. I mean, it's just listen, when you have characters like Morph who have every power, obviously, right? It's not really about the powers versus the bad guys. It's about the character. And I bet you could rewrite those episodes to have her as Mohawk Storm with the punk suit, going about her journey, and then she gets her powers back maybe at the beginning of season 3. Like the time travel, whatever's going to happen, the figuring out where everyone is in the past and the future for season 2 against Apocalypse. She can do all that unpowered or whatever. I'm just spitballing here, but like that idea that she gets them back by episode 8 or whatever it was.
Sure.
It makes the depowering like not nearly as meaningful as it is in the comic. Obviously, her journey to this point, from Life Death 1 till here, was pretty superficial. Like a page in a comic every 2 comics or so. We kind of touch base with her. But man, this issue covers so much ground, putting her through. I mean, that's classic. Like the injury, near-death experience, hallucinations, meeting wiser people, and saving a life and watching one end. Like those are great things to put the character through to get her to this ending where she's like, yeah, I'm kind of whole, even though I don't have. Yeah, I like the journey of it for sure. I'm not sure I understand it truthfully. Like I get it's comic book journey. I'm in the middle of something. Everything okay? Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Life.
My family's just returning home. I thought they came home earlier, but they're coming home from a dinner out. So all is good. But anyway, Claremont is going for some kind of, some idea about that the bridge between the two worlds, the life and the death, and making peace and connecting things. Like, I'm not sure it all sits perfectly with me yet, but it's a start.
Yeah, no, totally.
It's a start. I'm just mostly in awe of the artwork and it as a statement. Like, boy, does it ever elevate the text. Like, imagine a world where they didn't do it this way, where he tried to, get JRJR to do something, and he writes half as much text, and it would have just been a throwaway issue.
Are these issues? I'm guessing they're collected as like a
life death
collection. Yeah,
I haven't looked. Why don't you look it up, Punk?
Just curious.
Okay, I'll look. Let's see. X-Men Life Death Trade paperback. Let's see what happens. X-Men Life Death, Chris Claremont, Barry Windsor-Smith. You can get it on Amazon. Yeah, totally. There is, and oh my god, I'm embarrassed for everybody what the cover is. So I'm looking at what's in it, and it contains some comics. Of course, it's credited only to Chris Claremont. Oh no, both of them got credits there. It says the original X-Men go toe-to-toe against Blastar, Deadly Menace of the Negative Zone.
What?
Yeah. So I think there's a bunch of different stuff in here.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Okay, hold on. It collects. Ready?
Yep.
Uncanny X-Men 186.
Okay.
198.
Yep.
205 and 214. And material from X-Men number 53. I cannot explain why, but it does. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
That is something strange.
So the front cover is that Storm cropped out off the background with a matte black background. Just her floating. That's it.
Sure.
Yep. Matters to You says collected in soft covers and sequential, but not just Life Debt. It's a bunch like a compilation. Yeah. So there isn't enough meat, I think, it's only the other issue was a little longer, wasn't it? It was like 32 pages maybe, or 28?
I think it was. It's a double issue.
It was a double size. Let's just say it's 48 pages.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 44 of comics or 42 of comics. Plus this one. So you get over 60 pages of stuff. It would be an awesome treasury edition. Like blow up. Yeah. Which reminds me. Hold that thought.
I will. I'll hold it. I'm holding it.
Hold it harder.
Done being held. It's being held.
Okay. So this, I'm pretty sure I sent this your way to take a look at.
I did.
Yeah, you did.
Sure did.
Cool. Good. This is the most recent Marvel version of Weapon X. And so that is the size difference, right? You can see. So it's about treasury size.
Mm-hmm.
And in it is obviously all the issues of Weapon X from Marvel Comics Presents. And it is printed with that, very saturated colors. You can see like how serious that magenta is.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a good tell, like how intense it's going to be. But at this size, I think it works really, really well. But it's not just this, which is the reason I brought it up. So I find his work is visually dense, right? We can
Sure.
yeah. So I find when it's larger, it's a little easier to make your way through because of its visual density. But this one also has in it the next X-Men 205, like I mentioned, which is
okay.
his Wolverine issue, which is coming up.
Yeah.
We will get to actually quite soon. And it is bonkers and so much fun. In that kind of Paul Smith, Frank Miller, Wolverine tradition that we're looking for. There's a cover gallery, which is great. And then there are pages of inked art scanned. So it's a little bit of artist edition-y content for those who are looking for that. If you want to get your hands on some Barry Windsor-Smith original art, I would say that the levels are good enough that you can see the different inks that are being used. So there's black ink and then there's black ink. Like you can see, for instance, here, like that this black ink and that black ink are slightly different. Sure. So you can see when he's like attacking with multiple layers or a more watery ink to fill in spaces, when he's going pen and whatnot. So there's quite a bit. Some awesome Weapon X stuff. But this does not have any life death in it. So I don't know if there is something like this for life death, but that would be like a great format for it.
Totally.
And they call these things, they call them gallery editions, I think is what they're naming them. And there are a few. There's this one that I have, and there's a Frank Miller, Dave Mazzucchelli, Daredevil, Born Again.
Born Again, yeah.
So it's oversized, and they don't make perfect use of this size yet. Like they're not maximizing it, but it's better than the little ones for these aged eyes. So is there a way to she's saying, let me look back at this, get a better read on. Collected in soft cover, sequential, yes. Were there C stories and other issues along the way? Okay, gotcha. To prolong, connect the life death stories issues. Chuck's Gallery Edition, yeah. They cover the era of issues, not just life death as it's the compilations, right? So there are just a couple pages here or there in those other issues by JR and Claremont.
Yeah.
The scenes where she is dealing with those two racist sons of Baron Strucker, sons of BS. So where
son and daughter.
Yeah. The Fenris twins or whatever they're going to be called. There are those moments where she deals with them. There's the scenes of her leaving to go on the boat when she leaves New York in the harbor. But there aren't any like really meaningful transition. It would almost be really kind of cool and worthwhile to flesh it out, like to hire Barry Windsor-Smith to do 10 more pages just to kind of bookend the whole thing a little bit. And then that Ad Astra in Africa, it might be worth all of us getting our hands on giving it a read to see where he wanted it to go, as like not speculative fiction. Like it's not quite fan fiction either. It's sort of where the two creators diverge, the same way that there are 20 issues of John Byrne X-Men that Byrne has made in the last decade that are what happens after Byrne left the series. Which is insane. If you don't know about that, by the way, look up John Byrne Elsewhen. John Byrne, free, on his own dime, has been making X-Men fan fiction from the moment that the moment in continuity where he leaves the series after Phoenix, after the Alpha Flight, after Days of Future Past. So by issue like 144, 145, Byrne has been doing 20 more issues on his own. He pitched to Marvel. Marvel didn't want to have him do it officially, so he's just done it himself. And he posts pages free.
Yeah.
And some people have collected them and bound them.
Yeah.
There might be a copy treasury size on my shelf right there, and it might be awesome. Just saying. But anyway, this Ad Astra in Africa might be that kind of vibe where it's like, yeah, you're not quite X-Men here, Barry Windsor-Smith. Claremont wouldn't have done those choices, wouldn't have made those choices, but it's still kind of interesting to see what's the natural extension of what he's laid down so far.
Sure.
Yeah. I do like this better, like I said, than the cartoon at this moment. Like, I would have loved, but the idea of like, okay, the cave is there.
Yeah.
But she comes to that conclusion that both worlds together and she is whole, and then she's like reborn. Which was cool, but man, imagine how it would have felt if it happened partway through season 2 or 3. And like watching her at her long, or just like making peace with it. So, do you have any idea if she gets her? I mean, she does get her powers back, but do you have any idea when it's coming?
No.
It's going to be a long time, bro.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, get comfortable.
Yeah.
What else should we talk about in this moment in time? X-Men stuff.
Well, X-Men stuff.
Yeah.
What's going on? X-Men stuff.
There's been some more commercials for Wolverine.
Okay.
That's good news. One of us got their hands on an X-Men adjacent action figure.
It's true.
Do you know who?
I'm gonna say it's
me.
You. Let me see it's you.
Kazar. The most naked man in my house.
That's right.
If you're debating getting Kazar or not, get Kazar. He is really, really well sculpted.
Okay.
He looks great. He's like super good posable. It's such a vast improvement on even 2 years ago Marvel Legends. Really cool. Yeah, really weird to have like blonde Tarzan and all that he represents. But this is actually a Golden Age Marvel hero who was revived for the Silver Age, like characters like Submariner, Captain America, Human Torch, Vision. The list goes on and on. A lot of those names were repurposed as the Marvel Age comes about in the 60s. So Kazar is an old school Golden Age Tarzan knockoff. But it's awesome to have this guy.
Does it come with Zabu?
It's a Build-A-Figure.
It's a Build-A-Figure.
So I've got my first piece, and I've got to build the rest of Zabu because that's definitely the thing that
gotta have Zabu.
Gotta get Zabu. But there are 5 other figures I need, and I don't want all of them. So we'll look forward to those.
Always the way with the Marvel Legends.
Of course. I gotta get those pieces, and I'll sell off the other ones when the time comes. But that should be fun. Allie says, that's awesome. Thanks for the heads up on Byrne fanfic. Allie, if you want to know more, you can always hit me up on Instagram or something, and I can show you if you can't find it on your own, or just if you ever want to chat about it. It's super cool. And then totally non-X-Men related. The superpower line McFarlane's redoing, like from the 80s superpowers.
What'd you get?
Sinestro,
Sinestro, the little elf.
Legion of Doom style Sinestro, and oh my god, Brainiac, Silver Age Brainiac.
With
or is he actually modern age
shorts?
Brainiac? Love it with his green legs, so good. To go with my Blue Beetle.
Blue Beetles, yeah, Ted Cord.
Yeah, so good. So I'm loving having these ones. They're so much fun. Other than that, there's no other. There's lots of X-Men comic news from the comics of right now.
Right.
A lot of stuff is going on, but I'm not. That's not the point of the show.
No.
Although, hey, shows that
we do have some news this weekend.
Oh yeah.
You're going to be at.
I'm going to be doing a family event in Markham, Ontario, called Core Day at Core Basketball. I'll be there for a few hours with my buddy Kevin from Toying Around, and I'll be drawing with some kids and selling some books and having fun talking probably about, I'm guessing, Spider-Man and X-Men. And we'll see. I don't know what to expect, but it's close by, and I'm sure I'll snag some good food on either end of it at some point to make it extra special.
And you'll work on your core because it's core
And
basketball.
I have been. I've been planking every day to get stronger in my core again. I need to help me draw comics and get strong. We're getting there. We're getting there, buddy. Don't worry. Beside that, want to talk about that?
Sure.
Group of 7 Most Secret Tale. You can get that at our website, group7comics.ca. That's available, and we'll be having appearances after this weekend at Heroes World in Richmond Hill, Ontario on July 6th. I'll be there for their 23rd anniversary party. And then August 17th, you and I will be in Newmarket, Ontario at Wayside Comics and Cocktails.
Can't wait.
And I'm very much looking forward to that hangout with you. We're going to have a good time. So we'll be around in July and August in Southern Ontario, suburbs of Toronto. And that's pretty good about that. I'm not going to spoil anything else just yet.
Okay.
It's not time. But what else? Anything else you want to shout out?
That's it for me.
All right, man. That's good. I think I'm going to go find my family, make sure everyone's okay, and then I'm going to watch The Acolyte, episode 3.
Yeah.
It's something to do.
Have not done that yet. Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe it will become something. At this moment in my mind, it's not really quite a thing, but maybe it'll get there.
Maybe
there's still opportunity. But that brings us to the end of another episode of Previously in X-Men. Thank you to my good buddy, master of all voices, writer of Group of 7 and Peregrines, Chris Sanagan. Thank you, Chris.
Hey, thanks, Jason.
My pleasure. And you can find out more about our comics and upcoming appearances at group7comics.ca. Of course, it's the number 7. And follow us at Group of 7 Comics on social media as well. Previously in X-Men on social media. You can find us only on Instagram. Please click like and subscribe. It really does help us to, sway the algorithm a little bit in our favor once in a while. Share this with your friends, whatever. If you know anyone else who'd be interested in something like this, please pass it on. We would really appreciate that. And tell us your take in the comments below about X-Men comics, about Storm's journey, comparing the cartoon, movies, comics, etc. We'd love to hear from that. I hear from you on that. We hope you stay X-y out there in the real world. Stay safe and stay X-y. And thanks, Bob. And have a good night. Yeah, that's it, Chris. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for hanging with us. You make it so special every time.